Hello, I'm Daniel Yates from Learning for My Reptiles, and I'm a research scientist. And so today we're going to be reacting to Wicked Reptiles video about laws, reptile laws. This is Carrie, my Peter Bandit skink male. I love him to death. He's my boy. This is my baby girl. She wants to climb my face. Her name is No Name. She is adorable. They are both precious to me. Yes, they are. And they are not scared at all. So they're going to be joining me just because it's nighttime and these two like to hang out with me. They'll hang out on my back. They're really fun if you don't have a shirt on. They tickle your back. It's really cool. So I like Adam Wickens. I guess Adam Wickens. Even though on Facebook I've talked to him a couple times, super great guy. Even though I've called him the Canadian gnome, or he takes it so greatly. And I have told him how proud I am of him for going through all the hassle of becoming an American citizen. And if there's anything I can do to help him, I'll do it. Because he's just one of those guys that's just a great guy, and that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, so I'm very proud of him. So let's get into this. I've been actually working behind the scenes to try to get a law passed, because I think there's one that needs to get passed. So I'm actually talking to my local herpetologist. I am talking to people that write books and everything under the sun. And I'm also doing psychological studies and herbiculture videos. I am trying to get across that we're not bad peoples, we're not weird peoples. So this stuff is actually important to me because I think it affects the animals, and I think there's things that we can do. So let's get into this.
Today, let's go over the top 5 stupidest reptile laws.
I gotta put my babies back. They're getting around a little bit more than I want them to. Okay, let's start this over again.
Putting things in place that sometimes don't make sense. So today, let's go over the top 5 stupidest reptile laws. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles.
Big fan of Diamonds. He doesn't compare to Pitch the Bitch, my baby girl. Okay.
Number 5, cross-border laws. So there are a lot of laws that prohibit you from taking animals from one state to another or over borders altogether. And in the U.S. ARC actually defeated this bill. There was a bill earlier this year.
He's getting some of this mixed up here. U.S. ARC played a role. U.S. ARC Florida probably had more to do. I've been talking to U.S. ARC Florida. U.S. ARC didn't even know this piece of legislation had been cut out. The legislation he's talking about. Mark Rubio paper-clipped an amendment onto the CHIPS Act when it was in the House. And it would outlaw any exporting or importing of animals. And if it wasn't already in the state, you couldn't have it. You couldn't ship from state to state. So there's some things there. So U.S. ARC's a great organization, but we have to remember that U.S. ARC is more of a warning shot, not actually necessarily the best for the feeding laws. They get out there and find leaders in the community, and then they find these laws and they send those leaders out, and that's a good thing. That's actually a positive thing. It's just not what everybody thinks is actually happening. Now, I've been trying to get Phil Gross on a little bit. Daniel from U.S. ARC Florida, I definitely want on. Because what people don't understand is people that had more to do with getting rid of that laws are zoos, research facilities, so actual scientists and stuff, friggin' pet food stuff, suppliers and all sorts of people like that, fish food people. Those organizations probably had more to do with it than U.S. ARC. And I'm not saying USARK didn't have anything to do with it. They certainly did. But once again, I talked to Phil Gross. I asked him, because on the first day they talked about why the hell is this amendment in this bill, this CHIP Act bill? Why is there an animal amendment? It's just ridiculous. It's like, okay. But after that, Phil Gross didn't know what was happening with the bill. And I'm not sure that's a great thing. But he actually admits to everything of this. All these criticisms, he knows. He actually says it, but the American people, I say American people, Adam literally just said it. That is not how that worked. So we need to show support for the fish food people, things like that. There's all sorts of things like that we need to work on. But it's this law of not transporting, it's shitty to a point. Now, people were complaining about there was a bill passed in Illinois in like 2015. You can't bring an animal in to the state of Illinois without a vet certificate. And it's not a terrible law. You're trying to keep out anything like that, any type of diseases and stuff. But that's money, short notice, because there was a lot of complaints about it this year because they were going to crack down on it. So money is an issue there. That's a whole nother ball game that has nothing to do with reptiles. The fact that the economy has been shit before the pandemic, and then it got worse after the pandemic. So, yeah, inflation's a whole nother ballgame. Vets charging so much is another issue, but yet they're just visually checking your animals. So there's not necessarily getting the most out of that. So that's a whole nother thing, a whole nother ballgame to work with. Adam got that part, but he doesn't know better. That is not something that most people realize. But that's what I want Phil Gross on for, to talk about Illinois laws, where you find them, and then how do you find leaders? How do we reconcile those leaderships? Because Daniel from USARK Florida does a fantastic job. USARK Florida's, they get the actual paperwork from all sorts of stuff that's just amazing work. I wanted to originally have USARK have a person that didn't have reptiles but understood Florida politics, but yet another person that understood reptiles but didn't understand Florida politics in Florida very well, like Camp Cannon. But after hearing Daniel from USARK Florida, no, he's wonderful. What he does is just absolutely amazing. Go follow him. He got herpetologists to sign off. He got economists. He got all sorts of scientists to sign off saying that terrapins should not be outlawed. They should be kept, and we would actually work with them, and that we would actually have better situations for the terrapin, and it would cut down on poaching. But no, FWC. So this is why I'm so adamant about getting with herpetologists from other states and trying to get the laws that I think would work because of my psychological studies and my understanding of politics and all these different things. I think I could actually help the animals, put money in conservation, and just do a wonderful thing for the community overall and get us all on the same page to the point that you're no longer having to explain every little fucking detail to the next keeper. So this is the things that I'm working on. So I'd like for you guys to come join me on that. But just from this alone, USARK's great, but they don't have enough funding to be what people like Adam here's claiming.
That was tabled to prevent animals from being transported from, say, even if you lived in Iowa to Minnesota, if you lived in New York to Ohio, whatever. And this didn't make any sense at all. If you live at
Yeah, like this law that they were trying to pass, so it would be a federal ban, and it would go to a white list, and literally anything that can't be kept in Puerto Rico because the state's in its territories. So if your animal can live outside in Puerto Rico, it would be illegal to keep in Alaska. Ridiculous.
the idea is USR, go USR, you guys are awesome, that would prevent you from doing that. I guess the idea is that you wanted to make it more difficult to transport animals because is there a reason besides you just want it to be more difficult for the reptile hobby? Is there? I can't think of one. Now, some of these laws actually do exist. So, for example, in the U.S., you are not allowed to keep Fiji banded iguanas. It doesn't make any sense because I can keep them here if I had one. Do I have one? I don't know. You should hit subscribe because maybe I bought one. Anyway, I can't have rhino iguanas, though. You can in the U.S.
So laws like this, where one country can have it right next to the next, but the other one can't, these are things that I don't fully understand because of the CITES and things like that. I want to talk to more people and understand how CITES work and things like that. And that's what I want to bring on to my reptiles and politics videos so that we can better understand this.
It doesn't make any sense. Rhino iguanas are from Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, that and Haiti, that islands, right, that they share. They are from there, and they are endangered there. They're not endangered in the U.S., so why can't I bring one from Buffalo Falls, Ontario? It makes no sense. It doesn't harm their native range. It's just silly goose stuff. And the same thing with Fiji, Niagara Falls, Fiji bandits. Fijian archipelagos and places like Tonga banded iguanas out of the Fijian archipelagos. That makes a lot of sense. But why can't you bring it from here to there? That doesn't make sense. And even further to that, things like hognose snakes, for example. There are laws in places like Colorado and Missouri where neighboring states you can have them, but you can't breed them and can't transport them. You can buy them in Colorado, but you can't. Like, there's just these silly goose laws that don't really make any sense. And the reason is there's no risk to population. So, like I said before,
I don't disagree with him on this one. Like, this is one of those things, like, it's, I don't know. But that's one of those things that I could talk to Jeff Brigler, our state herpetologist, and see why. It's very fascinating.
if it's a Fiji band.
And if you guys stay with me, yeah, I'm in Missouri. I'm in St. Louis area. And yes, I've been in talks with Jeff Brigler after his breeding season to have him come on.
Iguana, if I can bring it from Niagara Falls, New York to Niagara Falls, Canada, it's not going to affect that Fijian population at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Understand? If you don't want to be able to export things from a location. So, for example, Fiji banded iguana, if it makes sense too. We'll get on to that in just a sec. And by just a sec, let's do it now. Number 4, no native keeping. Why? Like, if it's an endangered animal and there's a law to prevent poaching in the wild, that makes sense, okay? If you live in Florida and you can't take indigo snakes into the wild, that makes sense. They're endangered. I get that totally. But if you're in Ontario, Canada, like I am, I'm not allowed to keep eastern garter snakes because they're native here. I'm not allowed to keep 5-line skinks.
This is interesting. There's some states that actually have laws you have to get permits to keep local stuff. You have to pass tests and all sorts of stuff to keep local stuff. I want to do that for everything for good reasons. We're going to talk about that because honestly, our perceptions are not always the same and we need to get on the same page from the very start. And if we all have to take a test, then we can all get on the same page to a point where when you're talking to a person, they're not going, oh, okay. They actually understand what you're saying. And so that's important stuff. But it's interesting who checks to make sure that you don't have local stuff. I've got friends that have talked about possibly getting me local stuff. So I didn't ask them. They were just like, yeah, I thought about getting you this lizard that lives in my wall, but he eats the bugs, and I'm very happy with that. So we're going to name him Fred, and I love that. That's where we should be with it. It depends. Different species, you need to understand the care requirements. Like you wouldn't want to keep hellbenders. Even, an amphibian on the list. Yes, I'm playing an Adam Wicked's game here. An amphibian on the list, yes. So the hellbenders, you wouldn't want to keep in captivity because they're a canary in the coal mines, how things change in captivity. There's some things that you might not want from that. So you'd want to keep them from the population. But there does need to be a reasoning behind why you can't have that one. But if you have local stuff that you can't keep because of like the hellbenders, then if you allow people to keep other local stuff, then guess what? They're gonna go, oh well, maybe I can keep the hellbenders too. They just, because there's not enough people enforcing it, then they're not. It just becomes a problem for the average person to realize, no, you don't know enough about conservation to keep that animal. So if we start letting you pull from the wild of anything, then you're probably going to pull the animals that you shouldn't be pulling because you're not actually intelligent enough to make those distinctions. And that's true. So this is one of those that it's like, you really have to talk with them. We would have to pass laws to get people more on board with understanding their local stuff. I think Maryland, I looked it up, and you can have local stuff with permits. It's just one of those things. And it's not simple. You have to take in the human element. So this one, I'm not for or against it because it's not simple enough to be for or against it. If there's a risk to the local populations on this species, and you allow people to keep this species, then eventually they might take this species, and it's just a big mess, big clusterfuck. And we don't want that. So until people get their heads out of their asses, I don't know how much I'm against this law. So people ruin it for everybody else. I mean, we're just thinking about the animals themselves.
Because they're native here, skunks, foxes, whatever. It's activity anyway. Why can't I keep them? It tends to go collect a certain amount of animals. They're not endangered. People are going out and trying to find corn snakes. You can buy one for $40, $20. People are giving away for free on Craigslist. So why aren't you allowed to keep them? This is, in my opinion, it's still a goose. The difference is hunting, you go through like a rigor. In poaching, let's make a law against poaching, which there already is, by the way. The difference is hunting, you go through like a rigor.
So laws against poaching aren't working, and we're allowed to keep them in captivity. So if we push on things like that, then there could be more issues because nobody likes to be told what to do. So you start telling your local herpetologist and the local authorities that they have to do this, and this is something U.S. like Florida is having to balance because FWC's not wanting to work with them, so they're like having to sue them. But when they sue them, that means the FWC's less likely to work with them, but yet they're not working with them anyways, so it's just a massive pain in the ass. But he has a point here.
Process, all the money from your license goes towards conservation.
This is what I'm talking about with licensing for just every reptile, period, exotics in general. $25 goes to your conservation. Like I said, Maryland, as far as I know, had laws for this. But we're going to get with that with Natalie's Reptile Room and Bill Stewart.
Poaching, nobody gets any money. You get an animal and you depopulate the area. I understand that. And to drive this point home, if you're in Georgia and can't keep a corn snake, or you're in Canada and Ontario and you can't keep a 5-line skink, why is it that Australia, you're only allowed to keep native species? Well, I know, because anything in Australia, because they have all the a lot of things should be invasive there. For example, domestic, a lot of hunting magazines is another great example. There is reasons why you wouldn't want to introduce things, but to not be able to keep native things, I don't get it. We're going to pick.
The other side to this coin on keeping native things is that making people take tests and keeping them, understanding their diets, their care requirements, and things like that can help them understand the conservation of that animal. That's interesting. That's a fair point. Educating people is a wonderful thing. But how many people do we know in this hobby really don't want to be educated? They want to tell you how shit works when they themselves don't actually understand what the hell they're talking about. Because we're not domesticated in a way of learning. Let me make myself feel better by feeling important by just doing whatever. So yeah, the amount of work people have to put into that is the amount of work they should have to put into any animal, but they're not doing it already, so there's kind of a problem there.
Piggyback that with number 3. Number 3, the illegality of keeping harmless species in cold climates. What? I'm looking at you, Saskatchewan. So if you don't know what a Saskatchewan is, it's not Abominable Snowman, that's a Sasquatch, it's different.
Hey, boss man, are you watching this documentary Saskatchewan?
Okay.
Sam's quite tricky.
Saskatchewan, capital Saskatoon, also has places like Regina and Moose Jaw because they name things silly goosery. Anyway, it's a
Canada.
flat place that gets really cold. You can't have ball pythons there. So ball pythons have never killed a human in the history of Everdom because they're ball pythons and they're derpy and adorable.
Fair enough.
And also, they can't live in places like Saskatchewan because if you let a ball python go in Saskatchewan from, say, October until May, it will freeze to death. If I had a ball python outside right now, even though it's many degrees, they're living in the winter. Australia, like I mentioned, it makes sense why you couldn't but there are areas where it would make sense. But in Saskatchewan, it doesn't make sense.
And he's completely right. That law doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, that you can't keep a snake that will not survive 3 months in your climate there. Like, that's just the stupidest thing ever. But it's like, there's a town in Maine, I believe, where you can't have a certain type of dog, or you can't have dogs at all in the town because the mayor got bit by a dog as a child. Just some of these stupid laws. It's like, gosh, bless. And so there's efforts to actually include lawmakers in reptile expedition, reptile shows, not expos, but actual shows where you're educating the audience on reptiles. And that's actually a thing. So we need to think about that. This is the part where you get your leader, your local leader, your herpetologist, and you work with the lawmakers. You get them used to the animals, and then you educate them as much as you can. And I wonder if we can do that for states like Missouri, Oklahoma, places like that, it will start to actually transfer over. And if you can see that conservation dollars go up when you make these certain types of laws, then places like Florida and Alabama and Georgia and the Carolinas, both of them, will start passing these better laws that actually help the animals, helps us understand conservatism, and just better just all the way around. That's what I'd like to see happen. So where these few states over here in the South are trying to fight us, we actually have states over here that are actually working with us and showing these states that you can make money, that you can work with us and make beneficial changes to your state where you can actually might get paid more as a herpetologist, animal wildlife people. So yeah, there's some things that we need to change, and this really is a stupid law.
Not be able to keep tag using, but come November, December, January, February, they're going to die. So, you silly goose. Number 2, size bands. Okay, so if you wanted to do licensing for really big things like saltwater crocodiles, American alligators, even...
He's right. Making licensing for bigger animals probably a better way to go about it.
Mainland reticulated pythons, I would entertain your argument, but things like you can't have a lizard that's over 3 feet.
Yeah, but this is also what we were talking about. They think it's going to hurt somebody, but this is actually on responsible keepers. It's like the bulldog and pit bulls and stuff like that. Oh, they're just awful animals, and they just want to hurt everything. Like, no, it's the owner's fault. The owner. So we need to educate the owner before they can even get the animal. We need to get them on the same page as everybody else, or they shouldn't have it. And this way, it would actually benefit all of us. Benefit our animals, benefit vets. It would benefit all of this, because vets wouldn't feel like having to explain every little fucking thing to every little person, because we'd already be on the same page. I can't tell you how many people I've met actually keeping reptiles that can't read a light bulb. How do you keep a reptile and not know how to read a light bulb? How do you not understand T5 and T8? How do you not understand percentiles? How do you not understand? I mean, the packaging sometimes can be confusing, but my God. And it's tough for somebody like VizTech to educate everybody on lighting. I have a degree in physics. I understand more about lighting than most biologists who talk about this subject. It's not that complicated. It's literally like the engineers that engineered the box often sometimes make it bad. But, going off on this tangent, it's still a point that we need a licensing, not for the animal, but for you to buy any exotic animal, so therefore you understand the hell you're getting into. You're on a page where when you talk to somebody at the store, you can actually understand what they're trying to tell you.
What are we doing?
And so they can explain the dangers of having a 6-foot snake, a 10-foot snake, a 12-foot snake. Like, they can tell you the dangers of it.
You can't have a lizard or a snake rather, that's over 6 feet? Come on. Because what that does is that means that you can't keep a super dwarf reticulated python. And that's the stupidest, dumbest, most silly goose law, registration. Now, this might ruffle a few feathers. I don't care.
Unless it's venomous, registration really needs to be restricted.
Registration leads to confiscation. It does. If you, for example...
He's right. He's completely right. They're not using registration to, hey, we know this guy has this, so we want to make sure we get money from him for another license, and we want to make sure that he keeps it right. It's, hey, we don't like this right now, so we need to create, or better yet, do you understand what the God, what are those people at the airport? The TWA are, they're theater. They're literally theater. They're a form of theater where it's like, oh, well, look how safe you are. You have these people checking everybody. But yet they've done studies where they show that they don't have any effect. That's what registrations almost are. They're a list for people to later on and go, hey, we've done something wrong. We have this list of animals. Let's do something to make the public feel like we're doing something. So, no. But this is also why I do my herpetology, my psychological studies in herpetology, to make people understand that we're not nuts. We're not crazy. we love these animals like people love dogs and cats. Maybe even more because they don't just love us back unconditionally. We have to earn that bond. So these are things that we do. Like registration is for literally venomous stuff, for stuff that actually poses an actual threat to human life. So mainland reticulated pythons, maybe. Anacondas, maybe. I'm not completely opposed to registration on those particular animals. Because if you're stupid, those animals can kill you by accident. They kill you by cutting off circulation to your blood, to your, circulation of your blood. So you could just have one on you and it just accidentally kills you. This is why you need safety of 2 people when you do it, but people aren't that smart. Well, I've been doing this. They get complacent. I've been driving for 50 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't need to focus. I've done it for 50 years. Well, I know this animal super well. I'm fine. He died. Oh, wow. No, you need to do that. You need to have somebody with you. You need to think about the safety points. So registration on those, I'm not too registration on a Tagu. Are you fucking out of your mind? What the, man, what are you thinking? It's theater. It's theater. They're literally going, well, look what we've done, public. We've outlawed the Tagu. Why? What the fuck did the Tagu do to you? What, did you get bit by a Tagu? Then what were you doing wrong with the Tagu? Because the Tagu's not just going to bite you for nothing. So what were you doing wrong? Why are you not educated in this? Why are we not educating people better? That's why I started this. That's one of the big reasons why. And then I want to make sure people understand laws in their states. So I'm trying to set up interviews where we can go over laws of states and help design, even try to get with rescues that actually rehab wild animals and then release them so we can better understand how we can better help them on the test.
We'll have ridiculous laws change overnight. This is my...
Yeah, he's right. Laws do change overnight, and that's what I'm trying to do, is help people find where to find your local laws. But I'm trying to have people on in like Europe. I'm trying to find people for that. What are they doing over there? In Canada, Adam, and America, people drive like they're complacent. So they actually run into buildings. They don't do that over in Denmark. What Denmark did was recognize the problem that people aren't putting thought into driving. So what they did was they forced them to think by shrinking the roads and making them a little curvier. Denmark has nobody running into buildings anymore. This is what we have to think of when we actually think of laws. What are some of the problems? The complacency. Oh, well, I could just read one care guide that they have at the store and listen to the people at the store, and now I know what I need to know to pick up a reptile, so we're fine. No, that's not how that... No, you need to do more work. So if you're forced to take a test, it's, oh, well, now I know how to read a light bulb. I know what the Ferguson zones are. I know how the difference between ambient and freaking surface temperatures and humidity and captive and wild caught and things like this. I now understand what's going on. I'm now at least on a page where when I talk to somebody, a breeder, I know exactly what he's talking about. He doesn't have to explain every little detail to me. And having this perception that is super similar right off the bat will help us grow faster and learn to care for these animals. There'll be less deaths off the bat. It's literally shrinking the roads so people have to focus more.
Arguing with, oh well, why do you care if you're not doing anything illegal? Why do you have anything to worry about? Because what's legal today?
Yeah, he's completely right.
Canada. In Canada, in 2020, we decided to make a bunch of weapons illegal that function exactly the same as the legal ones, but they're all registered because they are a restricted firearm, right? Is your license there? That makes sense. That makes sense. That is my two like and subscribe.
This is great. I mean, hopefully this will get out to more people. I would love it if you guys would make sure Adam gets this. I would like to have Adam on eventually for the psychological studies in herbiculture. Wouldn't you guys like to see me talk to him? Adam's a wonderful guy. He really is. And I have utmost respect for Adam. So let's work on things. Let's try to get the people. Let's work on laws that actually help the animals make money for conservation. Let's understand that until we can fix the public, this is always going to be an issue. These laws are things that we need to work on, and we need to shrink the roads to make people focus more. We actually have to force them. That's what laws are supposed to do, because people are not intelligent enough to know when they don't know something, and that how to look for something, how to do their own research. I did my own research. I know how to do my own research. No, I'm an actual research scientist, and when I hear people that are not research scientists go, I did my, I spent, 3 days working on learning about this thing, and oh my God, wow, the rabbit holes. It's yeah, welcome to science, buddy. Welcome to science. I literally have a friend who's writing the book on Peter Bandits. He read a book from Africa back in the 1800s because it had a chapter or a paragraph about Peter Bandit skinks. So thank you guys for watching this. I really appreciate you guys. Go to my channel, keep up with me, because we're really diving in deep into the subject matter. I am literally here to try to teach you about laws in the United States and beyond, and laws that we can make better to actually help these animals more. That are not stupid laws for theater. These are laws that are important. And I hope you guys would stay with me. If you have any questions for somebody like Jeff, like the Missouri herpetologist, Jeff Brigler, hit me up. If you have questions on any laws that you want, like a state herpetologist or somebody to answer, hit me up. I think this is something that we need to work on. But something that brings to mind is that a lot of these laws aren't necessarily, like I was saying before, the first one, they're not bad. It's not the law itself that's the problem. It's the execution outside the law that's the problem. And it's a pain in the ass. And we need to fix things outside of herbiculture before we can fix things in herbiculture sometimes. And that's a big problem. We need to increase the American paycheck. The American pocket has to grow. Otherwise, conservation around the world potentially dies. And that's a problem with so many animals losing their habitats. But we'll get in more into that in some of the other videos. I'm in talks with the guy that writes the books, Phil from France, things like this. So stay tuned. And like, subscribe, and come check out my channel. You'll realize that I actually love the animals, that I'm very passionate. I have a higher understanding of a lot of these subject matters, and I want to bring it to my audience, and I want to make things better. I am here not for theater. I am here to change the world. And the people that believe they can are the ones that do. In 2024, I might run for Congress. I might run for government. I might even run for president. I mean, fuck it. If they're not going to do it properly, I'll fix it. I'll work on it. I understand all these topics better than a normal person, so for me to be able to do that, yeah. It's just, God. I really want people to see my work so that I can help you. I can help everybody. I can help the animals. Let's fix some shit here. And Adam, I respect you. I appreciate the work you do. Keep it up, big boy. Keep it up. You Canadian gnome.